All that sassy attitude came crashing out, and it made her seem appealing yet unattainable, brash yet vulnerable. She said things he didn't expect, behaved in ways unfamiliar to him. She smiled, and he wanted to strip her naked. Her car door slammed hard, and she looked around the garage behind her, talking to herself in low, mumbled words that reeked of irritation and disgust. Unaware of his presence, she said, "For God's sake, Ashley, get a pair, why don't you?" Never taking his gaze off her, Quinton pushed away from the wall. Patience, he told himself. He'd have her, and soon. "A pair of what, Ashley?" she screeched. The high-pitched yell of panic bounced around the cavernous garage in deafening force, causing Quinton to wince. "For God's sake, it's me." Eyes wide, she whipped around, zeroed in on him, and went from startled to furious in a heartbeat. The change was something to see, and she looked as desirable pissed as she did impatient. After stomping across the concrete floor, she thrust her chin up close to his face. Since this was the second time he'd startled her in the garage, he felt a little guilty. Holding up his hands in concession, he said, "My apologies." She didn't soften a bit. "You're making a habit of this, Murphy, and I don't like it." Quinton gave in to a half-smile, gently touched her hair, and lied through his teeth. "Not on purpose. I just finished some late business. Since I knew you were due in soon, I decided to wait and say hi before heading home." The last time he'd seen her, he'd been with a client. A sexy, blonde female client, and though he knew Ashley wouldn't admit it, she'd misinterpreted the situation. Now he needed to make her understand his interest for her and her alone. For a single suspended moment, she stared at him, mostly at his mouth, her expression soft and giving. Then, with a frustrated growl, she strode away from him. Damned contrary woman. She wouldn't make this easy for him, but she did make it interesting. Quinton propped his hands on his hips and watched her long-legged retreat, undecided on whether or not he should say anything more. But after only 3 steps, she halted. Her straight, stiffened back still to him, she snapped by way of explanation, "I usually don't scare so easy." An olive branch? He gladly accepted it. "I gathered as much." He hadn't known Ashley long, but already he accepted that she wasn't a timid woman. Definitely not a woman who jumped at shadows. In fact, he'd have described her as ballsy beyond belief. "So what's going on? Why are you so jumpy?" "It's nothing." She shut him out, and he didn't like it. "Okay." He'd let that pass for now. Harking back to her earlier comment, he asked, "What do you need a pair of?" Her shoulders relaxed, and she turned to flash him a cheeky grin. "Balls." "Well, good God, I hope not." She shook her head. "I could use them in the figurative sense." He chose to see her chattiness as an invitation and fell into step beside her. "Want to tell me why?" Her shoulders lifted. "I've had a weird feeling that someone's watching me." She glanced up at him. "It's probably you giving me the willies." "Me?" She poked him in the chest. "Every time I turn a dark corner, you seem to be there." Half under his breath, he muttered, "Not exactly the reaction I'd hoped for." The first time he'd met her, she'd been running for the elevator and he was stepping out. She'd ended up in his arms, and from that point on, he'd been a goner. He stepped ahead of her to open the door to the building. In her usual long-legged march, Ashley went in past him. He had a feeling she'd keep walking until she left him far behind. On a sigh, he said, "Ashley, wait." She paused, and one slim brown eyebrow lifted. "For what?" She looked, well, adorable. Her disheveled brown hair draped her shoulders, partially concealing the ridiculous long-sleeved t-shirt she wore. Ashley had the oddest fashion sense he'd ever witnessed.